All right, welcome in everybody. It's going to be episode number 14 of the Monty and Murdy College Football Show. Thank y'all for tuning in with us. Monty, what's going on, man? We had to take a week off. We had a little scheduling issue last week. So what's going on, man? How you been?
Yeah, 2 weeks now. Didn't have time last week. Obviously, our work schedules didn't line up too well with last week. So good to be back. Good to talk about college football again. Um, Obviously, a lot has happened since we've
Yeah.
since we last since we last spoke on the show. But um, we'll get into. We're not going to talk so much about 2 weeks ago, obviously, because it's kind of washed with this last week happening. Um, But somebody you said had mentioned they wanted to hear my take on the Bama Tennessee game. So I'll talk about that a little later in the show. But no, I'm excited. Like I said, excited to talk about college football again. Excited to talk about the rankings and well, obviously, and then the next Tuesday coming up is the first CFP ranking, so that's a big deal. Just a lot going on in college football, and excited to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. So on this episode for y'all, we're going to break down a week 9 recap. As Monty said, we're going to touch on the Alabama Tennessee game from week 8, just because we didn't get to cover it because we didn't do an episode last week. Following that, we're going to hit the new top 25. Kind of a lot's changed, so we'll make sure to touch on some of the big things there. And then we'll go through and do our week 10 predictions. All right, so we got 6 games to preview for y'all. We'll finish up with our dubs and duds of the week, and that's going to be how we close it out. So Monty, let's go ahead and dive in, man. Let's get started. Um, week 9 recap. So we'll start with the disappointment that
Um,
is the what's that?
yeah,
What you got?
well, I was gonna say, yeah, that's what I had the game. Make sure we had the same game first. Yeah, obviously let you talk about this one. It's
Yeah,
not. It's looking uh, pretty rough over there in Norman. Which stand?
yeah. So Oklahoma went to Oxford, took on Ole Miss, ended up losing 26-14. Um, After leading in the first half, which is kind of odd. I mean, I didn't honestly see it coming. I thought Ole Miss would win this one pretty handily, just with how Oklahoma's offenses looked. But the offense came out. Offense coordinator got fired going into week 9. So this is the first game that you see. Hey, what is Oklahoma offense without Seth Luttrell calling the plays? They promoted Joe John Finley, who's the tight ends coach. He coached under Levy. He coached under Kiffin. Um, he comes from the Brile system. So he's got a lot of RPO stuff in it. Jackson Arnold was, named the starting quarterback. So that was new to see again. And man, they came out and they played good. Played with an edge in the first half. Things kind of came off the rails in the second half. They just weren't able to move the ball. It kind of comes down to the offensive line. They're just not good enough on the offensive line to be able to do some of the stuff they want to do. Not to mention, they're still missing their top 5 receivers. Like, that doesn't help. But those issues, even if we had our top 5 receivers, the issues on the offensive line would still be the limiting factor for this offense, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Um, no, I said the same thing. I mean, I didn't watch the game in real time, but I was keeping an eye, and I had watched a little bit of it. What I saw was that same thing. OU did look good early, right? You're playing a good, maybe Ole Miss isn't as good as what people thought they were going to be this year, like SEC contender, but they're still a really good team, right? And you go into Oxford and and they did play well early, and that's a good Ole Miss team, right? So you can see like there's flashes of OU that you can tell that they're OU, like they're still good. You can see it. There's just things missing, and then with the schedule that they have, unfortunately, they're not quite good enough because it's only flashes that we're seeing. So they're not quite good enough to overcome a lot of these games. And then when you play a talented quarterback like Jackson Dart, eventually they're going to get to you. I mean, that's as good as the OU defense is. Eventually, if your keeps being on the field, at some point, they're going to score points against your defense. And that's, from what I saw, that's basically what happened.
Yeah, I mean, basically So the third quarter is really where this game kind of came off the hinges for Oklahoma. Um, I mean, they went into halftime with a 14-10 lead. They scored, I mean, right before going into half. So, you're like, hey, halftime, we got the momentum. We might have the potential to do something here. But the third quarter, Ole Miss came out. They made good halftime adjustments. Our secondary showed to be a little leaky, I guess you would say. Some cornerbacks got beat, some free releases, maybe not being lined up in the same coverages. A cornerback is thinking, hey, I got safety help over the top, and you don't. You're responsible for the deep third or, whatever part of it. So, it looked like there was some miscommunication there that led to some busts with some wide receivers running free for Ole Miss. Unfortunately, those kind of things are going to happen. And like you said, I mean, Ole Miss is good enough to where, and Jackson Dart is good enough to where if you give them enough opportunities, they're eventually going to make you pay. But, man, it showed some promise. There's people who are jumping up and down. And, look, I think you just got to be able to accept a new reality as an Oklahoma fan. Like, hey, we're missing some pieces. The receiver situation, that limited us early in the year, that didn't help. And the offensive line is just, it's just not going to get, it's not going to get better this year. It's going to need the development of young players in the offseason. It's going to need possibly some transfer portal additions. Hopefully you get Jackson Arnold back for another year. I mean, because he looked really good in this game. He was mainly doing check down stuff. He wasn't throwing too much over the top, but it's just, you're not going to be able to get those deep throws and kind of open up this offense with a limited O-line. That's kind of what it boils down to, is you're going to have to hit check downs, hit quick outs, screen passes, stuff like that. But the fact that he's able to run and manipulate the offense that way, it showed good promise from him, where it looked like he struggled in that early in the year.
Yeah, and that's another note I did also make, was that I said I think Jackson Arnold is the guy, and I have been saying that. I said that benching him earlier in the season was way too premature. Obviously, Hawkins is not bad, right? You can see he makes plays, but I just think Jackson Arnold is the guy, and Tennessee's defense did make him look bad, right? But then now, as we see how good Tennessee's defense is, and we'll talk about that later. But I think Jackson Arnold played really well, and I think he is the guy. For OU, I think it's you have to turn there's a new goal now this year, right? You're obviously not going to win the SEC. You're not going to make it to Atlanta. You're not going to make the playoff, right? So there's a new goal, and I think for now, I don't want to call it a wash season, right? Because it's not. You still got to go out there and win. Especially for the players, right? You don't want to, like the seniors and stuff, you don't want to say, well, this season's washed, so who cares, But the new goal, it's like, let's make a bowl game, right? And let's end the season, let's win a bowl game. Like, I mean, whether you go 6-6, 7-5, 8-4, at this point, right? It's like, you're 4-4, I believe, right? It's 4-4. You're 4-4 at this point. You're like, what?
My dog's howling. Just keep going.
Okay, I thought maybe the sound was screwed up, but
no.
I mean, so yeah, at this point for OU now, it's like let's make a bowl game, let's win that bowl game. I think that's the important thing for this team, and just move on to next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you just got to reset your expectations and understand that. I mean, Brent Venables has already said, he said, hey, Nick Anderson, Jaleel Farouk, Deion Burks, Jaden Gibson. He said all these receivers have already communicated to him that, hey, we want to come back. We want to play again for OU. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you got to kind of look at that and be like, hey, we can come back loaded in the receiver room. Hopefully we can get a little better on the O-line. Jackson Arnold will have another year under another offseason to hopefully improve under a different offensive coordinator who can probably maybe steer the ship into a better direction. And hopefully we can maintain the same level of play on defense and get better next year. But this year, the season's not a wash. We got Maine this week. And, hopefully you can steal one of the Missouri, LSU, or Alabama.
The Mizzou game's looking very, very winnable.
Yeah. which we'll touch on Mizzou here in a little bit. So let's go ahead and move on, man. That's about all I got for OU. It's a tough loss, but it still is encouraging, if that makes sense. There's still some signs of life there, and I like to see what they do this week against Maine.
Yep.
All right, so moving on to the next game. Man, this one, I hate the order this one's in. So LSU versus A&M ended up being a fantastic football game. A&M wins in College Station 38-23. More than covering I believe it was like a 2-point spread on this one. A&M really covered it, and this game is really the tale of two halves. What were your initial thoughts when you were watching it?
No, I mean it's LSU, like you said, it was tale of two halves, right? LSU seemingly looked dominant in the first half, right? I remember, I flipped the game. I got home from the gym late, so I flipped the game on, and it's 17-7 already, and I'm like, well, shit, like LSU might be the real deal this year, right? They bounced back from that loss early in the season to USC, and then you get to that second half, and I mean, hey, props to Elko and his coaching staff for making those adjustments. What is it, Wiegelman? Weigelman?
It's Wyman.
Okay. Well,
Wyman.
Third quarterback. I didn't want to mispronounce his name.
Wiegelman is a good take, though. I appreciate Wiegelman.
Well, anyways, no, but being able to be in that situation where he's like, okay, obviously he is not working, this is not working, and going to that Marcel Reed and literally not only changing quarterbacks but changing game plan. Going from let's throw the ball, and run the ball, of course, because the run game is freaking awesome. But then going full ground and pound with a couple, deep balls, and Marcel Reed being able to do that in the second half, it was very, very impressive to see that game. That game was extremely fun to watch. You said it was a tale of two halves. For me, also, it was you saw a tale of two offenses, right? You saw LSU in their air raid, right, working early, and it still worked, somewhat in the second half. But then you saw A&M and their freaking talented run game. I mean, with Marcel Reed and both those running backs, I always like to give the O-line props when it comes to running the ball, and I am, but those freaking running backs are talented. And I think that was the difference. Marcel Reed was the difference maker, but the difference in the game was the run game overall, and it was a very impressive win. A&M 5-0 in the SEC. So it's like we got to start talking about A&M and that Notre Dame loss is looking better and better each week. So yeah. A&M's could be something serious this year.
Yeah, A&M's looking really good. Probably better than even probably the most optimistic of Aggie fans. I don't think they even believe that Mike Elko was going to be able to get get the
in year one.
Yeah, get the ship steered as good as it's looking. But yeah, that's kind of Marcel Reed coming in, changing the offense. Now, granted, there was some things that I had brought up about LSU's offense in previous games, is that they appeared one dimensional. They were able to throw the ball and they weren't able to get the running game going, which that's what plagued them in this game, is that, if a team knows that all you're going to do is drop back and throw the ball, they're going to be able to game plan for that. And that is something
especially with the talent that A&M has
absolutely
on their roster.
And that is something I worry about a little bit with A&M going forward, because it looks like I don't believe Connor Wyman's going to see the field probably again this season, unless the wheels just completely fall off the bus for Marcel Reed. But that is something I do worry about with A&M, at least a little bit going forward, is that, are they going to be
consistent?
Are they going to be able to run the ball like that against everybody? Now, LSU does some weird stuff on defense, and I think they still need some improvement under Baker, under defense. I mean, I don't know if you're watching it. They do this weird I don't understand why he does it. So they line up their defensive line in a pretty much an I formation, lined up on the center. Did you see it? So they pretty much line up a head nose tackle, and they line up their three defensive linemen directly behind him. And then whenever it comes when it comes time for the ball snapped, they flare out, or so that way I guess it's to confuse the offensive linemen's assignments, so they don't know who they're
Yeah.
working to. But all you do is the offensive line is just what A&M did is and Mike Oko, they just looked at it and they said, okay, so our offensive line on the edge is going to get, they're going to be able to meet you 2-3 yards past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, so they can seal the edge that much easier.
Yeah, it's like I don't understand really I get what he was trying to do, and it's confused the offensive line, because he was trying to run some different coverages and mixed coverages, and it was working whenever it was Connor Wyman at quarterback, because LSU defense had him straight up confused. However, whenever they put Marcel Reed in, and he went to more kind of it was basically a one read. He had probably one read, and then he was going and freaking running the ball. So whenever he got into that real simple system, he didn't have to think. Marcel Reed, Mike Elko didn't make him think much. It's like, hey, if it ain't there, go. And and they were able to just hand it off and do some quick little RPO read game or read option, and they were just able to basically run the ball down LSU's throat. But Marcel Reed, credit to him for being able to make the throws. He was only asked to make 2 throws in this game, completed both of them, 70 yards. Hey, if that's all you're asked to do and that's all you need to do, mission accomplished.
And it works. It's like, what else can you ask for, right? You just beat a talented LSU team. And, with that run game, I noted, I just said the A&M run game with momentum is something else. With the home game in Kyle Field, obviously Kyle Field was freaking jumping. You saw how dominant they were in the end. And it showed. The scoreboard showed at the end, right?
Yeah.
They ended up dominating that game for 4 quarters, or I would say for 2 quarters in the second half. But impressive win, and A&M is looking to be something serious. So,
yeah, A&M in the front, in the driver's seat for the SEC championship,
which we did not think we'd be saying in Week 10.
Did not have that in my bingo card.
No.
So moving on, we had the Missouri Tigers traveling to Tuscaloosa to take on the Crimson Tide, and they got blown out. 34-0 Alabama wins. Monty, what were your thoughts on this one, man?
Yeah, it goes to show that Mizzou is not what a lot of people thought they were. I have been saying this since the preseason. I knew that they had some talent, but they weren't going to be what they did last year. And I've gotten into it with a lot of Mizzou fans, especially in the offseason, because they had one good season, and then it was like, oh, Mizzou's this, Mizzou's that. And I'm like, watch. Sure enough, this is the second game this year that Mizzou has been blown out by an SEC opponent. And with them without Brady Cook, it's like their offense can't do anything. And when you play a team with a talented offense like Bama, with that defense, and the defense has too many weaknesses, and that's the problem, and that's what we saw, right? And so 34-0, they got blanked by Bama, which for me as a Tennessee fan, it looks better, right, for Bama beating them, because it shows that Bama is still good, right? They deserve to be ranked, maybe not as high as top 5, whatever, this year, but they're still a very talented team. And it's, one of Tennessee's rivals. So the win, Bama's win here helps Tennessee, and impressive win nonetheless for Bama. But Mizzou's just not that good.
Yeah, I have a note here for this one. The line is pretty simple. It's with Brady Cook, Missouri is average. Without him, they are well below average. And man, I don't know what his injury situation is going to be going forward, but I know Missouri needs him back as fast as possible, because they are just not a very good football team without him. And to be honest, an Alabama defense that is shown to be more or less the weaker part of the team. Blanking them is probably the more impressive thing. Now, I do got to give Drinkowitz a shout out here. I was willing to bet he had a late opportunity for a field goal, I thought he was going to take it. To just to say, we didn't get shut out, or whatever the case. He didn't, so I got to give him a little respect there. It's either end zone or nothing whenever you're in kind of one of those blowout situations. So, man, they're just. I don't know if Missouri's that bad, or if Bama is Bama turning the corner, because I don't think Bama's not everything that they're kind of more or less, they're going to be playing with that 12th spot this year, and that's going to be how Bama kind of sneaks in, as if they're going to be right at the end, or are they going to get some past favor bias to be able to promote them into that 12th spot. I guess we'll learn a lot. We'll learn a lot about how the college football playoff views this Alabama team here come this next Tuesday.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and we can go ahead and hit on the next game. I mean, there's not really much to say about it. I mean, Missouri pretty much got beat down, and I'll touch on Missouri here a little bit later. However, so the next game we got is Notre Dame and Navy, and what I thought was going to be a much closer game than what it was. Man, it ended up getting pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean the moral of the story, I mean, or I should say the story of this game, it was just the turnovers, right?
Yeah.
You can't win, you can't beat a top 10 team.
Turn the ball over six
when
times.
You run 6 times. I mean, literally, like you can't beat a top 10 team with the Veer offense if you're going to turn the ball over 6 times in one football game. It's not going to happen. And what is going to happen is exactly what happened, and you get blown out.
Yeah.
You don't have the offense. If you get down big, you don't have the offense to make big plays, big like deep balls and over the middle 15-yard. They do. Navy does make those plays every now and then, but I mean, your core is the Veer. And when you turn the ball over 6 times in a game and you got that as your offense, they go up early. You're toast, and we saw that.
Yeah. So Notre Dame ended up winning 51-14 versus Navy, giving Navy their first loss of the season. Man, ever since that NIU game, this Notre Dame team is really, they've kind of bought into what they are. They understand. They're like, hey, Riley Leonard's not going to come throw it all over the yard. He's not going to be a Garrett Nussmeier for us. But
I saw a Heisman, a top 10 Heisman list the other day, like a couple days ago, and Riley Leonard, they put Riley Leonard there at that number 10 spot. Like, he's playing good football, and I think they're finally letting him play his style of ball.
Yeah, and he's not going to throw it all over the yard, but he's going to be efficient, efficient in the passing game. But his main thing is he's going to be able to run the football and add that element to your offense. And Notre Dame has just said, hey, we're going to play good defense, and we're going to be able to run the football. And that leads you to a game, as long as Riley Leonard doesn't turn the ball over, they're going to be able to keep themselves in a lot of football games. So I think it bodes well for them going forward and coming out of this game. I'm interested to see how Navy bounces back from this.
They will, I think. They will.
Just because, it's really tough to go, be riding a high, come into the game, be 6-0, and, suffer your first loss of the season in this dramatic of a fashion. Now, granted, is Navy going to turn the ball over 6 times in every game? No. But
especially with the it being the Naval Academy, with the discipline that comes with being a team like Navy, Army, Air Force, they're probably never going to turn the ball over ever again, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's unfortunately, right, we wanted it to be a close game. It maybe could have been, but yeah, you just can't keep it close when you turn the ball over 6 times.
Yeah, so that's
51-14.
51-14. That's I wanted that one to be a close game. I was hoping Navy could maybe pull some magic there. But they still got a big, there's still plenty of time coming up. They still got a big matchup with Army. Notre Dame still has to play that Army team.
Yeah, that's the one that I think that in my opinion, I think Army is the better team than Navy this year. Obviously, they were both ranked right there, neck and neck with each other, both undefeated at the time.
I mean, how could you not?
Yeah, right. They're obviously very similar identities in when it comes to football. Um, but I do think Army is the better team. We'll see eventually when Notre Dame and Army play. I think that's in what, 2 weeks, 3
Mhm.
weeks.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll see. But yeah, right now I put Notre Dame is starting to look like a lock for the playoffs. Right.
You mean Army
Um,
when an Army Notre Dame play?
yeah. What did I say?
You said Army Navy, but Army Navy game is like after selection.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
know that. Yeah, I meant
No.
Army Notre Dame
Okay.
in a couple weeks. But yeah, Notre Dame's looking like a lock for playoffs. Seemingly, we we gave them some stuff early on when they lost in Northern Illinois. They write their own their path. They write their own path to the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, as good as Notre Dame does look currently, we know that they can make some mistakes, right, based on what we saw early on. So we'll see. But right now, to me, that's looking like a lock for the playoffs. Probably that one of those top five seeds, most likely. I'm not going to say one or two, but five, 4, 5,
I
could
mean,
definitely be.
you're giving me a lot of crap about putting them at 5 in the preseason poll. I'm just saying.
Hey, Notre Dame. Hey, Notre Dame. Hey, I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong. I still think once they make the playoff, though, that they won't do jack with it, but we'll see. But no, hey, I'll be the first to admit that I'm wrong when I'm wrong about something like that. Miami's proven me wrong so far, so
It's all right.
um,
Oklahoma's proving me wrong. So
um, yeah. Well, no. A&M. I remember I said I don't know why A&M and Miami are always preseason ranked and Notre Dame's high. So those three, I'm wrong.
yeah,
Right? As of right now, we'll see. When Miami actually plays a good opponent, and we'll see when A&M is probably the one that I think looks the best. If A&M and Notre Dame played again, I think A&M would win. Um, but Notre Dame and A&M are starting to look like real deal teams. Miami, they're number 5 now. Probably this next week going to be number 4 because Ohio State, Penn State. We'll see, but
yeah,
um, man, but until they play somebody of serious significance, I can't trust Miami.
man. How bad is?
After what we've seen this year from them, a couple close games from against teams that are not. I mean, they almost lost to Cal, who Cal is Florida State's only win this year.
Yeah,
So we'll see what Miami can do. But
yeah, yeah. We'll discuss that a little bit more. We'll be sure to we'll dive into a little bit more of the top 25 teams whenever that playoff poll comes out, and we'll be able to react to that a little bit next week. So next game on the, or at least last game on the Week 9 recap is Washington versus Indiana. And Indiana 8-0 got the win versus Washington 31-17. Um man, they are playing some good football. Cincinnati, he's probably going to be one of the hottest names in the coaching search this offseason. I think if anybody is
I
throwing
think
the,
he'll stay though.
you think?
Yeah, I think he'll stay. There's no. I mean, he's already in the Big Ten. There's no need to leave. At least I don't think there's any need to leave. Especially if Indiana ends up beating Ohio State. Right there, that's your recruiting pitch. Right there, you're like, we're the new Big Ten, right? You know,
Yeah, but
Oregon was supposed to be, and he can use that as, well, hey, here to stay. Let's build this. But we'll see.
yeah, my thing about it is when I'm looking at it, I'm like, does Indiana have the money and the donor base to be able to match some of the offers that Cincinnati's
They
probably going to
had
get?
they had no reason to in the past because they've always been so damn bad, right? They're a basketball school. That's what everyone knows, man. So if they're this good, can they start building that? Because Indiana and schools like that, in that Midwest, Northern, like they have really loyal fan base. It's just if they're, like take Kansas for example, right? Kansas uh, didn't have anybody throwing money at their football program because they were bad for so long. They have a couple good years. They got this brand new stadium being built now. Granted, this year they're not that good, but
Hey, you got
we'll
just enough
see.
just enough to get the stadium through the border regions there.
Right, but to my point, right? That's like Indiana. If Sig can stay there and build that, those guys, those fans, they'll buy into the program.
Yeah, and so this Indiana team really rounded into form. I know we haven't touched much on the game. Indiana was in control for most of this game.
Yeah.
They ended up winning. I mean, they looked efficient. I don't know. Yeah, they forced Will Rogers into a couple turnovers here. Really just trying to control the game, both offensively and defensively. Nothing really crazy in the passing game. I mean, quarterback only threw for 124 yards, but was able to run the ball efficiently, and defense played really well. Against the Washington team, where with Jeff Fish, who I think, they're talent deprived after Kalen DeBoer left. However, I think Jed Fish is still a good coach, and they're going to be able to eventually round Washington. He'll eventually be able to round Washington into form.
Yeah, they'll be fine. And that's the thing, right? Jed Fish has this Washington team that basically got freaking gutted.
Yeah.
From last year. And and they still play these games. They beat Michigan, they're not Michigan like last year, Michigan, but Michigan's still a pretty good team. I don't think they should be ranked, but
no,
I don't think they are anymore either.
For some reason, Missouri still is.
Yeah. Well, but no, I mean, Washington, with what they look with who they have this year, they're actually playing some pretty good football.
Yeah.
And you saw it in that Indiana game. Like they made it close there for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Washington will end up being just fine. We'll see how Jed Fisher can recruit and develop. But right now, with the guys that he has, they're playing good football, and I think that speaks volumes, and that should be a good thing in Washington fans' eyes. So.
Yeah, it makes for an interesting conversation when you look at the 3 undefeated Big Ten teams. Now, granted, we have a couple of them. The catalyst in all this is probably Ohio State. All right, so because they have obviously the 3 undefeated Big Ten teams are Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana right now. Now Ohio State has to play both Penn State and Indiana. Obviously, they already played Oregon and lost. So, I mean, Ohio State's going to be kind of the measuring stick here. They still kind of control their own fate, and they're still probably right there with Oregon, probably even the more talented team as far as Big Ten football. So it does make for a kind of interesting situation. Indiana's got 2 weeks. They got to go play Michigan State, Michigan, and then they get a bye week right before they play Ohio State. Then now, granted, they got to go to Columbus, and take Ohio State on at home. So imagine
it's gonna be a tough one.
Imagine that one might get pushed to a night game, but with Fox, they like to put that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a friggin' 11 a.m.
Yeah, friggin' 11 a.m. kick. That's how they like to do it. So, outside of that, man, Indiana, they look good. I mean, even if they lose that one to Ohio State, I think they still will probably get some consideration for a playoff spot, especially if that's the only loss they suffer this season.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of those things like Big Ten, same with the SEC, right? Those teams that lose late to the really good teams in their conference, like say Indiana were to do it, or maybe just off the top of my head, like maybe a Tennessee, right? So you lose late, so you don't make it to your conference championship. But then somebody's got to lose that conference championship, and so do you hop that team, right, for second in the Big Ten, second in the SEC? So it's basically like because you lose in the regular season one game, especially in Indiana's case, right? You're sitting at 11-1. You don't got to go play anybody in the championship, and then somebody loses that game, right? You especially as a one-loss team, you jump that spot, and you have a really good argument to make the playoffs. So Indiana's sitting pretty good right now.
Yeah.
When it comes to playoff picture, but they got to only drop one.
Ohio State,
but we'll see if they win out.
Yeah, I mean the Big Ten could possibly get four teams in the playoff. I mean, could you imagine if Penn State loses to Ohio State this week, then wins out. Indiana loses to Ohio State, this week, then wins out, and then Oregon and Ohio State play in the conference championship. Ohio State wins. Now you're looking at four. One loss, Big Ten,
one loss, yeah.
Big Ten teams. So it's like, that's kind of a tough argument to keep
The
out of play.
argument, the argument's there,
Yeah.
right? You got these 4 teams that are in one of the premier conferences, one of the premier Power 4 conferences, and they're all one-loss teams, right? Those teams are supposed to make the 4-team playoff.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
well, we're not going to let them all into the 12 team, right? Because you got to let some other teams in. Well, this that, it's like you got the arguments there. That's all I'm going to say.
The argument is definitely there. So let's before we move on to the AP Top 25, like I said, listener request. They wanted to hear your thoughts on the Alabama-Tennessee game that occurred in Week 8 that we didn't get to touch on last week. So what did you think about that game? Obviously, Tennessee ended up winning in Knoxville 24-17. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'll keep this short because there's not a whole lot for me to say about it, and I want it to be crystal clear as a Tennessee fan. We need to start normalizing this win. So I'm not going to talk about. I didn't like how we rushed the field and tore down the goalposts again. It's like this is, if you want to be the great team that Tennessee is wanting to be, you have to act like it's a normal thing, normal occurrence. It's another Saturday, right? Beating Alabama.
Did they rush the field? They did, didn't they?
They did. At first, they didn't. and then everyone was like, "Well, fuck it," and then they all went, and then they tore down the goalpost. This time, Knoxville PD and the Knox County Sheriff's Office did not let them put it in the river.
Oh, they were just trying to one-up Vandy. That's all that was.
Well, hey, we did it first in 2022, so. But no, on the aspect of the game, 24-17, it goes back to, everyone was saying, Tennessee's not what people think they are because they won 24-17 against Florida. And what I said about that Florida always plays Tennessee well, even when they're a lesser team. That rivalry is always played well by Florida. Not always played well by Tennessee, but always played well by Florida. Yes, Florida's not that good this year. Yes, we didn't score until late. Yes, we only won by 7 points, 24-17, not a high-scoring game per se. But it was a rivalry game, and you saw that Tennessee is capable of winning those just like the Bama game. And it showed 24-17. What was it, 7-0 at halftime, the Bama-Tennessee game? With a third straight game with a big old donut. With a big old donut going into the second half. Third straight game, Tennessee did that. And they were able to score 24 points in the second half.
Yeah, the only thing. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just gonna say, run game's there still. This team can be something serious. Like the pass game has to get their side, and you see it. You see the scheme. It's nothing Heupel's not calling. The drop balls, the overthrows, like the scheme's there. The pass game's there. It's the mistakes by either Nico or the receivers. It's just at some point it's got to connect. And if it doesn't, nothing's going to happen this year. Nothing big, nothing of big significance. If they are able to consistently connect the pass game with the run game and the defense keeps playing, defense is a national championship defense. I mean, that defense is freaking something. So if you can get this offense working on both dimensions, it's a scary team. Bend don't break mentality right now. Happy that Tennessee beat Alabama. Second time in 3 years. Heupel's still undefeated at home against Alabama, which is obviously what fans and big-time Tennessee donors want to see, right? Beating Bama regularly. Good win, obviously. Very happy. But, yeah, and Dylan Sampson, man, he's something. Should be talked about more in the Heisman race than he is, and I think people are starting to put him in that top 10, whatever. But dude's playing some good football. But anyways, what were you gonna
say? So the only thing about Tennessee to me is, it's granted there's not many teams that can make them look, one dimensional, because like their offense, it's one of those issues. It's like, you're not looking like a complete football team. The running game's there. The defense is there. It's like you're just waiting on that passing game to kind of come into the mix.
And it hits from time to time, right?
It does. Yeah, it does.
That's what helps with not making us one-dimensional. But you can see, like, man, if a couple of these hit here and there, it's like the 2022 offense.
Yeah. Yeah, and
We have
that's
the talent at the quarterback position. We have the talent at the receiver position. It's just like something is just not quite there.
well, I just don't think I think the difference between this and the 2022 offense is, this one has a little younger pieces to it, especially with the one at the controls is a little younger. So,
Yeah,
there is going to be that inconsistency there where it's eh, like it's there, but it's skipping a track, if that makes sense. Whereas
yeah,
like Hendon
yeah,
Hooker, it looked like it was flowing like a well-oiled machine, like he
yeah.
knew where he was going with it. And it's I think as Tennessee progresses through the year, the closer we get towards the playoff time, they're probably going to get the more
And
experience Nico gets, the better he's going to get.
right, and I do want to make that clear to any Tennessee fans that do listen. Um, it's not like I'm not saying that it's we need more from Nico or he's not going to be the guy. I think Nico's the guy. I'm just speaking on the aspect of like this year. If Tennessee wants to do anything this year, something like we had, yes, he's young, and I know he's going to be fine in the future. He's going to be more than fine. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in my opinion, in the coming years. But if Tennessee wants to do anything significant this year, Nico is the guy, but there's got to be more consistency
Yeah,
this year. But other than
exactly.
that, they're fine. They're fine in the future, in the long haul. They're good. But this year specifically, they're going to have to figure it out. It's missing something. It's that consistency, and you need to see it this year if you want to do anything of real significance.
Right, and there's
Year.
still time. Tennessee still has. There's still 5 weeks left. Like that's tons of time to get out. It's not like you're playing at a talent deficiency. You're not.
Right.
It's not any of that. It's just getting it to work a little bit better. And it doesn't need to be. It just needs incremental improvement. It's not like, oh, what are we doing? That's happening in Norman, Oklahoma. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
That's now, well, it's like we just need incremental improvement. We just need it to be this much better, and then you're going to start hitting on all those. And like I said, they got time. They got a tough one coming up against Kentucky. That's a good defense. That Kentucky's playing with.
Yeah, I feel good about that game more so because it's in Neyland. If it was in Lexington, I'd be a little worried about it being a trap game.
Yeah.
Still can be considered a trap game, but I feel better about it because of where it's being played. Sold out, night game. We're wearing the dark mode, all black uniforms. It's a big
Looks
game.
Good.
Oh yeah, I love those uniforms.
Y'all's little social media editor probably doesn't get paid enough.
Media team has been killing it the past couple years.
Yeah,
and props to them because whoever's listening, if you haven't, just go to Vol Football's Instagram page, Twitter page, or X page, whatever. Just go. You don't got to go follow them. I don't care if you go follow Tennessee football. I don't care if you hate Tennessee football. Yeah, whatever. I don't care if you hate Tennessee football. Just go check out their page. Go check out when they announce the dark mode. It's a video, really good CGI stuff like that. It's Halloween themed. It's a really good video, and they props to the PR team. But on that, yeah, I think the environment's going to be massive, and that's what helps us going into this next game. But we'll talk about that game, so I won't say too much else.
All right, so moving on, we'll go ahead and hit our top 25. Man, we haven't done it in 2 weeks, so there is a lot of adjustments that have occurred. Couple of notes. We got Oregon at number 1. The huge matchup that we'll discuss here a little bit later. Penn State, Ohio State, number 3, 4. Georgia's sitting at number 2. Slowly working.
Which I think is the right spot for them.
Yeah, we got Miami at 5, undefeated Miami. Texas at 6, followed by your Vols at 7. And then we got Notre Dame, BYU, and Texas A&M rounding out the top 10. Is there anything in that 11, or is there anything in that top 10 that really stands out to you?
Most of the notes I have on the new AP Top 25 are going to be teams in the back half.
Me too.
Of the ranking, but one thing to note though that I have been saying is, with this Penn State Ohio State game coming up, if assuming Miami wins against Duke, which Duke, no slouch this year, if they end up beating Duke this next week, they'll probably be in the top 4, maybe even top 3. Who knows? But so that's one thing I wanted to note because I think if Ohio State goes into Happy Valley and beats Penn State will drop like from 3 to like 5 or 6 or something like that. Behind Texas.
I'd say probably
And
behind
then
Notre
Ohio
Dame.
State.
I'd be looking at them for that 9-10 spot.
See, and I don't think now if they get blown out, yes, but I don't see them dropping too far. I think it'd be like at that 5 or 6 spot. But anyways, and then of course if Ohio State drops another game, that's 2 losses. So Miami is very, very likely going to be in the top 4 here come this next week, as long barring anything catastrophic for them. Yeah, Tennessee didn't move. Happy with that. Notre Dame, BYU. Skipping a couple people. A&M obviously in the top 10. Welcome to the top 10, Aggies. Up 4 spots. Man, moving Clemson and Iowa State lost the bye week, I guess.
Yeah, lost the bye. It's tough.
Still sitting at 7-0, tied with Clemson at 11. Yeah, Clemson dropped 2 spots to 11, along with Iowa State dropped 1 spot to 11. Tied. They show Iowa State behind Clemson, so technically 12. But man, Indiana 13, think they should be in the top 10. Alabama up 1-14. I like that. Gives a little bit more credit to Tennessee after that win against them. I can go into a couple of my notes here. Now I'm getting close. So Pitt's at 18 here, up 1 spot to 18, 7-0. Man, I think Pitt's getting screwed. I think Pitt should be way higher. I mean, it's the lowest. I saw something. It's the lowest ranked undefeated team in a Power 5 conference, Power 4 now, like ever, or since some crazy long time ago.
I think it was like 1960 something.
Right, something crazy. But it's like what are we doing? Why? What have they not done that Clemson's done? With 1 loss. It's like let's start putting Pitt somewhere. At least top 15.
Yeah, I mean
15.
I mean, I think
they
have every argument.
2 losses in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd have every argument to be right there with Iowa State, Indiana, probably above Alabama. Yeah. I mean,
well, that's the thing too. Like, so Indiana's at 13, right? And I think they're too low even. But Indiana's in the Big Ten, and they haven't really played anyone crazy good.
No,
they're just undefeated.
Yeah,
and so is Pitt. So, anyways, that's just one thing I wanted to note. I already said Indiana should be higher as another note. Hey, Colorado and Wazoo, look out for them in the playoff conversation. I'm just saying. And then at the end there, Mizzou and Illinois. I mean, come on, they shouldn't. Neither of them should be ranked.
Get Mizzou the hell out of the top 25.
Mizzou definitely, but Illinois as well. Yeah. I mean, it's literally the only reason why they are still ranked. Both teams is because of the conferences that they're in. Only reason.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, neither of them should be ranked, but definitely not Mizzou. I would rather a 5-3 Vanderbilt team be ranked over a 6-2 Missouri, because Vandy has shown that they are better than Mizzou.
I mean,
against certain opponents, losing 3-3 to Texas. Huh.
Yeah.
Beating Alabama, who, by the way, Mizzou just lost to 34-0.
Yeah.
So,
anyways. What is even Mizzou's best win this year? Let's go back through.
I'd have to go to this here. This computer kind of sucks,
Auburn?
I'm going to try to go to this.
Is it Auburn or Vandy? I'd say Vandy is probably Mizzou's best win, and they won in overtime.
Yeah. And on a freaking missed field goal.
Yeah.
Mizzou missed a freaking field goal. 31-28 final score. I mean, it's like.
I'd say Vandy.
I get it. They say, oh, well, head-to-head, that's, they should be 25 because they beat Vandy, whatever. But Vandy's playing better football now. And I'm sorry. I don't see Mizzou playing Texas the way that Vandy played Texas.
No.
Or anybody for that matter.
No. I think Oklahoma has a chance to beat Missouri, but we'll touch on that here in coming episodes, so make sure y'all tune in. Now, yeah, that's really about it. I got on the top 25. I mean, Colorado does stand out at 23. Deion's kind of got them rounded into form. We'll see what they do. Still some obstacles to climb there in the Big 12, as you do have 2 undefeateds. With
who does my sorry, this is kind of off topic, but I'm looking at, so I'm on the AP website for those listening and watching. I guess you can't see my computer. I'm on the AP website, and on the AP website, top 25, it shows who their next opponent is. But some of these, I think they're the right. Duke. Miami plays Duke, right?
Yeah, Miami does play Duke.
Okay, so
They
let me
play them
see
this
this here.
week 10.
Oh, okay, that's because sorry, it said Colorado was at Texas Tech, and I know Tech's playing Iowa State, but that's in 2 weeks, so they got
Yeah,
to buy. That's why
yeah.
it shows the date. So disregard that. I was like, wait, is this like an old schedule or old ranking somehow? Anyways, um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
everybody's next
sorry.
opponent, regardless of bye
Yeah,
week.
that's how I was reading. I was like, wait, what the hell? But yeah, no, Washington State though. I mean, sitting at 22. I know technically they're not a power conference because there's literally two teams in the Pac-12, Pac-2.
For now,
But man,
for now.
for now. But man, but hey, 7-1. Their only loss was a close loss to Boise State, who has a close loss to Oregon, who we now know how good Boise State might be.
Yeah.
And that's Washington State's only loss. So I'm just saying, watch out for the Cougs.
Watch out for the Cougars. So let's go ahead, man. Let's dive in. We got week 10 games. We'll go ahead and start off. We ain't got to say much about this one. Man, it feels good. OU, I got Maine coming into Norman. God, we need this one, baby.
Don't take it for granted.
OU's a 35-point favorite, and man, it probably couldn't come at a better time for us. I always used to make fun of, back when I was, OU was back in the Big 12, I used to make fun of SEC teams. It's like they always schedule it's that October, November FCS opponent that just, comes in. You're like, oh, who's Georgia playing this week? And it's like, they got Chattanooga, or they got,
yeah,
some random team, Austin Pay, or, whoever it may be. But hey, I see why we need it. First year as an SEC fan, or fan of an SEC program. Hey, we need this one. So I got OU winning this one. I hope they can win it big. I would like to see some, I'd like to see the offense be able to experiment. I want to see some young players come in. Hopefully see some young guys on the O-line, see how they look. Like I said, we still have a focus on this year, but there's also the point of, hey, we're looking for
shifting expectations.
Yeah, shifting expectations. We want to make that bowl game because I think this team needs those extra 3 weeks of practice. I don't think that's something that should just be thrown away, especially for a team that you're like, hey, we're going in. Our coach we may be debating if Brent Venables is going to be the coach of the OU football program after 2025. So those 3 weeks of practice may mean everything.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I expect OU to win big. And yeah, that's about all I got on it. Any thoughts?
I just had one thing. It's just OU needs a big bounce back week, and that's exactly what they need. It's an FCS opponent. Should be a good game for Oklahoma, barring anything crazy. I think that defense will be fine. It's just getting your offense going, and I think this is a perfect game. Maybe have Jackson Arnold take some shots downfield. Let's see, against a team that should be a little bit lesser opponent than Oklahoma. Let's maybe experiment without giving up too much of the playbook. Let's maybe see let's try to get the ball downfield. Let's maybe run some different blitz packages on defense. That kind of stuff.
Experiment with it.
Right. Figure out, or at least try to figure out. I know it's a little bit later in the season, but figure out what the identity of this team is going forward for the rest of the season. So you can capitalize on that identity and be able to get to that bowl game, win a bowl game. So yeah, big bounce back for them. I am picking OU to win this game. I can't answer if they're going to cover or not, but
yeah, 35 is a lot to cover. That's a lot, especially for an offense that hasn't really put up 35 very much this year. So moving on, we got the University of Kentucky traveling to Knoxville to take on number 7 Tennessee. Monty, what you got for this one, man? How you feeling? Coming off a bye week.
Yeah, coming off another bye. I don't want to talk about what happened to us last time we played a game after a bye week, but luckily this one's at home. Which, by the way, if you're still out there wondering what I'm talking about, yeah, we lost to Arkansas after a bye week. So, I talked about it earlier, but getting the pass game going, can Nico finally open it up? This is a good game to do it. Obviously, big rival, and can't stand Kentucky fans, man. They are nasty people. But good game to do it against a good defense. At least they're sitting at 3-4. Not the season that Kentucky fans and Mark Stoops probably was expecting, but
Not after that payday.
yeah, well, we can talk about that at a different time. But no, it's still a dangerous opponent. I mean, most opponents in the SEC are going to be pretty dangerous. This one being in Knoxville it's a big weekend. Like I said earlier, need that pass game to open up. Need Nico to hit those guys downfield. Need those guys to make catches when the ball's in their hands. What I want to see and what I think I will see. I'm picking Tennessee, by the way. What I want to see and what I think I will see, it's the run game is crucial against a good defensive front in Kentucky. I think that we will see it. It's the one constant this year for Tennessee's offense seemingly is our run game. Even in the loss to Arkansas, Dylan Sampson still had over 100 yards rushing. It came in the second half, and unfortunately after that, nothing happened. But that's this one constant that seemingly outside of our defensive line being really good, the run game. And I think that's going to be the difference in this game. I think we're going to keep their offense off the field, and I think we're going to win. Could be close. It's another one of those rivalries. We'll just see how Kentucky plays and how our defense, if our defense can get to the quarterback early and often. But I think it'll be a good game for Tennessee. Picking Tennessee.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this one is, Tennessee, like you mentioned, they are really good in the run game. Well, Kentucky has a good defense, but Kentucky's actually been much better against the pass than they have against the run. They're, as far as in the SEC, they're the third ranked passing defense, but they're 11th ranked as far as rushing defense.
My only, and I understand that. My only thing about that is that we saw how well Georgia ran the ball against Texas, and Georgia didn't run the ball very well against Kentucky, only beating them by 13-12. So that's the only reason why I bring that up. My concern is how crucial the run game is, because although maybe the stats aren't there for Kentucky's defense run game wise, it still has been, they still can do it. They still have the talent they're capable of doing it. So
right, and I'm not trying to misconstrue it as we're still very early in the season. I mean, we're 7 games in at this point, 7 to 8 games depending on where your team is. So the non-conference, depending on who you played in the non-conference, they're still very much influencing these per game numbers, as opposed to where they'll be, here once we get about 4 or 5 more conference games with these teams. So I just think what Tennessee does well in the run game, I think that's going to be a safety net for them. They can rely on that defense. I don't think Kentucky's going to be able to score many points, and hopefully, Tennessee's going to be able to win here. I got them. I'm picking Tennessee as well in this one, so staying right there with you. Both going OU, both going Tennessee. Hopefully people don't think that's too much of a homer pick there, but hey, is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, given who our teams are playing this week, I mean, it kind of makes sense to pick those. I mean, hell, people can say what they want, but I picked Bama to beat Tennessee, and I was wrong. So they can say what they want.
All right, but,
yeah.
Moving on to the next one, we got Texas Tech traveling to Ames to take on a 7-0 Iowa State team. I believe, Iowa State is favored by 13.5 here. Man, I think Iowa State. I'm picking Iowa State in this one. I think they're just too much of a complete team for Texas Tech to kind of come play with. Everybody who's played Texas Tech has been able to score a pretty good amount of points on that defense, including Abilene Christian, who almost beat them in week 1. So, like I said, I think Iowa State is too much of a complete team to lose this game here at home. I would expect them to probably cover this spread. I think Texas Tech is still going to score some points, but I think what Iowa State does defensively with that 3-3-5 is going to be what's going to be able to allow them to limit Texas Tech's offensive potential, and look for Rocco Beck to probably have a pretty good game, maybe one of his best games of the year here against what is a porous Texas Tech defense.
Yeah, one thing I do know about this game, because Texas Tech has shown that they are a pretty good team. At least they initially were a Big 12 contender, so that they have shown signs of it. So this is no slouch game for Iowa State. The home crowd is very important here. I've been to a game in Ames before, a game that Iowa State did win, and the crowd was a huge factor. I think Jack Trice Stadium holds like 60,000 people, so it's not one of the massive ones, but it is a very loud place. Iowa State fans are loyal to the core, very similar to Nebraska. Like, they're very similar to Nebraska fans.
They're going to show up regardless.
They're going to, but they need to for this game, especially. Any team that Iowa State plays this year at home, that's a big game. Crowd's got to be there because they do affect games. At least, and especially like when I was there for that one game I was at, they did. Stop Texas Tech's run game. That's important for Iowa State. What the hell is it? Sorry, my computer was doing something weird. Stop Tech's run game. Stop that quarterback. I'm blanking on the quarterback's name, but he's having a quietly good season. I think he's got like 20 touchdowns and like 5 interceptions or something like that. I don't want to don't quote me because I don't know for sure. But
Baron Morton is his name.
Okay,
Baron Morton. Yeah.
And I think it was him.
Yeah, 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2,000 passing yards on the year.
Exactly, and against a Big 12 schedule. So if they can force him to turn the ball over and they can stop that run game, which Iowa State's defense I think can do. They have one of the best defenses in the country. The big thing on the Iowa State side, on the offensive side of the ball, minimize turnovers. Rocco Beck cannot turn the ball over. If he avoids the turnovers, I should say, man, this could be a shutout game, to be honest with you. I mean, their defense is good enough to shut Texas Tech out. But they got to be able to stop that Tech run game, because you saw how UCF ran the ball against Iowa State and how that game ended up. Luckily, Iowa State got out of that one, survived that one. But if they don't stop the run game, Texas Tech could be a serious problem for Iowa State's defense. With that being said, I am taking Iowa State. I think it could be a close one. I don't know if it will be. Like I said, there's a couple factors there that play in to decide that, but I do think Iowa State will come out of this one, and I think the difference maker is that crowd.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Iowa State covers there. So we'll see what ends up happening there in Ames. So moving on, we got a ranked matchup in the ACC. We got number 18 Pitt traveling to Dallas to take on number 20 SMU. Pitt's undefeated. They're 7-0. SMU's lost one game to a very good, and very feisty BYU team earlier in the year. But SMU's favored by 7.5. Can you tell me why that is, Monty?
You said SMU's favored by 7.5?
SMU is favored by 7.5.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I think this is our only, when I looked at the episode schedule, I think this is our only disagreement. I'm taking Pitt to win this game. Eli Holstein is playing Kenny Pickett football right now as a freshman. He's hot right now. Like I said, Pitt got disrespected in the AP poll. They still are being disrespected in the AP poll. They're a better team. We saw what Pitt's defense did against Syracuse. They need to do that again against SMU, especially with, yes, the SMU quarterback, Jennings. Is that his name?
Yeah, Jennings.
Yes, he's now the starter, right? And they've been playing really good football with him. It's still the guy that they didn't originally go with, which means they didn't trust him at the start of the season. So they need to make him turn the ball over, whether it be through fumbles, whether it be through interceptions. Do what they did against Syracuse. Confuse the offense, confuse the quarterback, and force turnovers. And I think that whether Pitt does that multiple times or not, I think with how Eli Holstein's throwing the ball around the yard, I think Pitt's going to end up winning this game. So that's my one upset. Call it an upset of the week. I think everyone else I went with the favorites, but yeah, I'm taking Pitt.
Yeah, I I think one of the things that brought this game kind of into question, at least a little bit, is that the fact is Eli Holstein's availability for it wasn't necessarily guaranteed, especially after he left the game, the Syracuse game, with an injury. Everybody was not sure what he's going to be. Now, granted, is he going to be 100% going into this game? I don't know. I mean, whenever you leave a game with an injury, are you going to be 100% come that next week?
Yeah, and I will say if he doesn't end up playing, then I would then
he is going to play. He is going to play.
Okay,
but his coach has already said he is going to play. I just don't know if he's going to be 100%. I think Kendall Jennings at SMU, I think they can maybe scheme some stuff up. I don't know if that SMU defense is going to be good enough to slow down Pitt. I think this one screams shootout to me. The projected score for this one is 25-33. I think both teams are probably going to score more than that. I consider this.
You're thinking like a 38-35, 42-38 type of deal.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be late, and it might come down to who has the ball last. We'll see. It's just SMU hasn't looked very good on defense.
It seems like whenever we say that kind of stuff, it's going to end up being like 7-3.
That's usually how it goes, Yeah. But I think these are two very good offenses. I mean, as far as scoring offenses goes, this is the number 6 and the number 14 scoring offense. Now, granted, SMU is a little better running the football. They're the 20th ranked rushing offense. That kind of comes from Kevin Jennings with his ability to also run the ball and kind of be that dual threat.
I'm getting blasted by the sun.
Yeah, it happens. But yeah, that's what's got me going with SMU. I think they can possibly get some things going with the run game. Hopefully, maybe limit Pitt to try to make them one-dimensional. We'll see, and see if that defense can hold up. I see it being a shootout, and hopefully SMU with the home crowd. I think they're going to show up as big as they can. I mean, I know the stadium's not huge, but I think they can still make it loud, and hopefully maybe they can pull something off late.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's a pick'em game, so we'll see.
Yeah, like I said, the 7.5 point spread, I don't see SMU covering that at all.
Nor do I, because I have Pitt winning.
Yeah. So moving on to the last game of the predictions here. Big one, number 4 traveling to number 4 Ohio State traveling to number 3 Penn State, taking them on. Ohio State is actually favored by 3.5 on this one, and
I figured they would be.
And for me, that basically that more or less picked the game for me. James Franklin, he wins the games he's supposed to win, and he loses the games he's supposed to lose. At least that's been his kind of reputation as he's been at Penn State. Now, granted, he is 1-9 versus Ohio State, which also plays another factor in for me. If this game was a night game, it might sway my opinion a little bit more. But with it being a big noon kickoff, which why Fox does that is beyond me. But
yeah, it just blows my mind. Anyways,
but with that being said, I know Drew Aller's health is a little bit of a question mark in this one. He's got a knee injury. We'll see how he's able to do. Like I said, with him not being 100% for this game, it makes me that much more confident that I think Ohio State will probably end up winning this one. Just with the talent and the receivers and playmakers they have, they don't need Will Howard to come in here and play Superman ball. They got more than enough talent to him to just kind of manage the game and rely on their defense to be able to win it.
Yeah, you mentioned about the talent. I don't think that there's a big talent gap between the two. I really don't. Penn State recruits well. The difference between the difference in the game, I'll say, Drew Aller being hurt, or at least not 100%. Because one of the notes I put in earlier in the week was, can Drew Aller throw for 300 yards against this defense, which Ohio State normally has just a really good offense and a defense good enough to win. This is a really good defense now that Ohio State has, and I don't think Drew Aller will be able to do what he needs to do to win a big game like this against a really talented Ohio State team. The the way that Penn State can win this game, which I'm picking Ohio State, I don't think they will, but the way that Penn State can win this game is if their defense can keep the game close. That's going to be the difference, because Penn State does have a good defense, and I think that this year, even though their offense has been playing well, I think that this year is on the back of the defense. I just think that I forget what we were talking about earlier, but I think it was OU's defense. It's basically like Ohio State's offense is just going to do enough to where eventually they're going to start scoring points. Like it's overtime in this game. Like eventually they're going to score points.
Yep.
Penn State's defense is good. Their defense is really good, but over time it's bound to happen. It's going to happen, and I just don't. With Aller being not 100%, Penn State needs to score, and I just don't see them scoring more points than Ohio State.
Yeah, but granted, I mean, there's ways for Penn State to win.
With it being at Beaver Stadium at noon, not at night, that's a big factor. So
yeah, I don't agree with Fox there, but hey, if Penn State's able, they got some good edge rushers. They've always, they produce really good edge rushers. If those guys can get in the face of Will Howard and probably force him into a couple errant throws, maybe one or two early, that might be enough.
We're talking a different ball game.
With how good Penn State's defense is, one or two is all you're going to need to give them. Mm-hmm. And Drew Aller and that offense.
Points off those turnovers are very important, though.
Huge
to win this game.
Huge
to win this game.
But like I said, both going Ohio State here. So let's go ahead and roll on, man. We got our dubs and duds of the week. Monty, we always start off by kicking somebody in the nuts here. So who do you have as your dud of the week this week?
This one, I saw your dub, and it kind of plays. And this is after I made this my dud, so it kind of plays off each other. My dud of the week is Brian Kelly in big games giving up leads. He did it again.
Yeah.
We all remember the post game press conference against USC. He friggin' hits the desk and he does this whole show. And
man, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and I mean, look, another big game. He did it again. He let his team do it again. Whoever you want to put the blame on, it's obviously it's Brian Kelly coached teams that can't finish games. Yep. Yeah, well, hey, they had to lead early. Okay, well, you were up double digits early. Man, score more points. Or just don't let them score 11 points. That's really all they had to do. And then they get blown out. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's all I got to say. But, yeah, Brian Kelly in big games, not finishing. It's got to be a point. It's like Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame losing to unranked opponents at home. You got there at some point. You got to get past your kryptonite as a good football coach, and that didn't happen. So, I guess we got lucky that my buddy didn't come on the show this week because he wouldn't have liked that. Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately not. However, we would have probably got him in before then, so maybe.
Well, and we are gonna get him on the show. For those, I was trying to, because we have only not a lot of listeners, so I wasn't really gonna say anything. At some point, whoever's listening, we do plan on getting what's his title? I believe he's a defensive player analyst on LSU's coaching staff. My good friend Will Clouden. So we're gonna try to get him on here pretty soon. Talk to him about LSU, and we were trying to get him on before the LSU A&M game and talk about the performance LSU had against Arkansas, but we weren't able to do that obviously because we didn't have a show last week. But we're still working on getting him on. Well,
I mean, LSU, like I said, they got 2 losses. They have the early one to USC, and then they have this one to A&M. Still 1 loss. I mean, everything they want is still in front of them. They still have an opportunity to make the SEC title game, and if you win the SEC championship, you're in the playoff. It doesn't really matter. So, like I said, everything that LSU wants is still in front of them. I think they still just got some growing to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So, for my dud of the week, I almost went with myself here because I predicted Utah to win the Big 12. But I had to go with the Utah Utes. I'm not taking the blame for them on that. they completely dropped the ball.
They let you down.
They let me down. They let me down. All right. So, I mean, it looked promising early on. They came out, looked great, especially with Cam Rising playing. He gets hurt. You know, they miss him a couple weeks. They drop a game. You're like, well, when Cam Rising comes back, you know, everything's going to be good. And then he gets hurt again, lose him for the year. And since then, with Isaac Wilson coming in, teams not having to possibly prepare for Cam Rising has apparently allowed them to just really be able to knock Utah off its rocker here. And, you know, they got a big one coming up against BYU.
Holy War.
Yeah, the Holy War, I believe, after BYU's bye week. I think BYU's on a bye this week. Yeah, Utah season's kind of falling off the wheels for them. Their offensive coordinator has already resigned.
Yeah.
Like I said, kind of one of those, hey, I think you should do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like I said, season's kind of come off the rails for them. They obviously way far back in the Big 12 title race, and I think they're sitting at last place in the Big 12 standings right now.
It's been a tough season for Utah, obviously, and honestly sad because Utah's always been one of those teams, right? Like you always have those weird teams that you just for whatever reason you can't explain it, but you've always liked them.
Yeah,
like you know what I'm talking about. And Utah's always been one of those for me. Like it's just kind of one of those like they've never really done anything bad or to upset me or anything. So you know I've always liked Utah, and I love when they do good. So it sucks to see them not do as well this year. Luckily for me. Because of them not doing so great, my hot take at the beginning of the season is still very alive and well. Iowa State winning the Big 12. So,
and I want to go back and correct myself. Utah is not in last place in the Big 12. That title actually belongs to the team that I predicted them to face in the Big 12 championship, and that is Oklahoma State. So maybe I really should have went with me here for the Dud of the Week.
You should have sat the Big 12 conversation out, buddy.
Apparently I should have. So Monty, let's end it on a good note, man. Who do you have as your Dub of the Week?
So this is to all my haters out there that say I'm biased, this is gonna really upset them because my Dub of the Week is gonna be Alabama and Caitlin DeBoer bouncing back despite, you know, all the talk outside the program. You know, did you hear that whole thing about Caitlin DeBoer not wearing a collared shirt on the sidelines?
It's been a thing all year. The players with untucked shirts. That's been a thing all year.
So so this whole thing. So props to Alabama and Caitlin DeBoer being able to bounce back in a huge way. Right, they go back home to Tuscaloosa. They take care of business against Mizzou. We say what we say about Mizzou, but nonetheless, a team that's better than a lot of other teams. Mizzou. Blanking them 34-0. I mean, props to Caitlin DeBoer being able to tune out all the noise for the players, refocus after a rivalry loss to a team that, as an Alabama fan, right, you're expected to beat this team every year and kick their ass. That ugly orange, right? You're supposed to beat them. You've lost to that team 2 times in the past 3 years. Bounce back and win in a big way. Yeah, so props to Bama. Like I said, Caitlin DeBoer, they're my Dub of the Week.
Yeah. For me, just tie it back in, I had to end up going with Mike Elko here for my Dub of the Week. One, basically, frankly have the balls to be able to make that quarterback change at halftime. You know, because like I said,
you saw something wasn't working, and you got that A&M fan base, and you were like, you know, hey, not working, let's go somewhere else.
Well, it's just whenever when you look at like today's modern world in college football. You know, if a starting quarterback gets benched, you're looking at him as that player is going to leave your program at the end of the year. It's a sad reality, but I mean, luckily I think Oklahoma might have saved themselves, but we still might have cost ourselves Michael Hawkins. We'll see. You know, it's like you still don't know about that whole deal. Hopefully Jackson Arnold comes back. I think they're planning on it, but that's kind of my whole point is that, you know, be able to make that decision and it actually pay off. You know, when it pays off in that respect, you're like, you know, you look like, oh, that dude, you know, he's the freaking Aggie Jesus. He's got him 7-1. And then his post game interview, I also had to give him props on that. For those of y'all who hadn't seen it, now granted he came out later this week or earlier this week after it and said, oh, that wasn't a shot at, you know, Jimbo Fisher, because he basically said the fact that, hey, this program, this is a real program. We're not run by a politician. We're run by a damn football coach and yada, 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 whatever.
It was a shot at Jimbo Fisher.
It was a shot at Jimbo Fisher. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. And, hey.
But not a bad thing, though. Let's be clear about that, right?
No.
Like, we love it. We love it. We love Mike Elko for it. But it was a shot at Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, I mean, like, granted, he backed off of it. He said, I wasn't referencing anybody. It's like, no, you clearly was a shot at Jimbo Fisher. But, hey, whenever
maybe your adrenaline was pumping, and you in your head you're like, I shouldn't have said that, but you said it, and you know what you meant by it, and we know what you meant by it. But like I said, not saying it as a dig to Mike Elko.
Look,
it's like, we love it.
Jimbo Fisher is making a lot of money to be unemployed right now, so he should probably expect a little flack to come his way.
And he should be okay with it, because he wasted Aggie fans and Aggie donors a lot of time.
Oh, and a lot of money.
A lot of time.
A lot of money, too.
So, no, Mike Elko saying that, we know what he meant by it, despite what he said, but we want him to mean that. So
yeah, and that wins you a lot of points with those donors who, gave ungodly amount of money to Jimbo Fisher.
I mean, if you got to really hate somebody to pay him that much to get the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly. So props to you, Mike Elko. Props to you, Mike Elko. So, y'all, that we've ran a little bit long here, but like I said, we're obviously missing a week. We're probably going to catch up a little bit more.
Which I honestly thought we were going to be short today, so I'm happy that we were able to.
Yeah. So,
run a little long.
Man, we thank y'all for tuning in with us. Monty, you got anything you want to say on the close out the show before I take us to the outro?
Just same thing I said at the beginning of the show. Happy to be back talking about college football. It was weird. It was weird not doing it last week. I can speak for myself, and I'm sure I can speak for you too. Both of us have very busy jobs. Last week, unfortunately, they took over, so we weren't able to do that. So we feel bad, but we're happy, like I said, to be back. Like you said, that somebody reached out on our Facebook page and wanted me to talk about the Bama-Tennessee game. We love that stuff. So if you guys have anything that you want us to talk about, I know we don't have a whole lot of followers, but anybody that wants us to talk about something, change, hear from, whatever, let us know. We'll do it. We have no problem. I wasn't going to talk about Bama-Tennessee today at all, but because somebody reached out and wanted to hear what I had to say, I talked about it. So we love hearing from y'all, so continue doing that, and appreciate y'all listening.
Yeah, man. Thank y'all for tuning in. Be sure to follow, like the show, subscribe to the show. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, anywhere where you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch it. Throw it up on the big screen, and you can sit here and stare at our ugly mugs as we go through and conduct this podcast. But man, thank y'all for listening. We'll catch y'all next week on the Monty and Murdy College Football Show. Until then, peace.